Welcome to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery starring Jerry Springer, along with Gene Galvin and me. I'm Megan Hills. We're recorded live in front of a brilliant studio audience at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky.
My daddy came home.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jerry Springer.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, I have attached, maybe I've told you, attached to my alarm clock in the morning. In other words, when the alarm goes off, it's not a buzzer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's Jerry.
Oh, for the love.
And then massive applause.
And then massive applause.
So here's the thing. I wake up in a good mood.
Well, that's what's important.
Yeah.
Just have to get a recording for you.
It's just
Wake up,
that Mickey
Jerry.
won't sleep with me now.
Well, that's not the only reason.
My situation is so different.
Yeah, what's your situation?
No one-
Gene?
no
Get
one-
your ass out of bed. It's 10 o'clock.
No one's clapping for Gene.
Nobody's clapping for me. Hey, you know, I don't know if I told you guys, but we're going to Cuba.
Yeah.
Yes.
The podcast is
Like
going,
for
or the
real. That's what
podcast
people
staff.
think that
This
this is a joke. It's
we're really
actually
going.
for real. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
What
And-
we don't know yet is whether we're going to be able to come back.
Correct.
We know we can
Correct.
get in.
But we got the one-way tickets. We're
One-way
ticket to
We're
Cuba.
negotiating the return. In
Depends
fact,
on your
the-
behavior.
The Cuban people are very happy that the Cuban government is willing to send us back. It's whether
Very much so.
Yeah, Trump is putting up a wall in Cuba now, just
Yeah.
so I don't come back.
Well, you know, and whether they let us in or out and let us return, I think depends a little bit. We're going on a people-to-people trip, perfectly legal,
Cultural
working
exchange.
through cultural
Yeah,
exchange. And we're particularly interested in seeing the politics of Cuba and the evolution of the politics of Cuba through the music,
Yep.
through message songs, folk songs, their roots music. And there are some artists down there, part of a movement called Nueva Trova, and they're troubadours, poets, and singers. Anyway, so I've been thinking as I've been working to put this together that I think we'll do better if we take some things, and apparently you can do this, where you give some things to your Cuban counterparts, people
as a
you're
cultural
meeting.
exchange.
A
Right.
cultural exchange.
Right.
Things
Something that are American that we
yeah,
can
that
give
maybe
to
they
them.
can't get here. So I was thinking maybe we take some
Levi's.
rolls of toilet paper, maybe we take some but I was thinking maybe some things from your show,
No.
for example.
No.
Are you crazy?
No, we want to show the best that America has to offer,
Oh
not
yeah,
Springer.
this is a cultural exchange, and those
Should they see, because you have done real work on the American culture, Jerry. You have worked the American
that is
culture.
true.
over
The Too Hot
How many
for
years have
TV
you been
DVDs.
Yeah, there you go. The Too Hot for TV.
I have been destroying the culture
For how long?
for 25 years
For
now.
25 years. 25 solid years. Yeah.
Thank you
Can you
so much.
imagine? Hey, listen to this. Can you imagine if the American government actually reads the paperwork and realizes that you're going to Cuba for a cultural exchange?
What are you gonna-
And they're going, no,
No.
don't let him
This is
go.
a major
Yeah.
No,
mistake.
don't tell
I'm
them
telling you,
about
the embargo will be back in effect.
real quick.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
even
we're going to bring
more
what
so.
DVDs of your show.
We'll bring DVDs
well,
of
and
my
that
show.
what's it called again? Too Hot for TV.
Like you don't have every copy.
No, I don't.
Oh yeah, it's a
Hey, and
stocking
aren't they-
stuffer.
aren't-
Come
yeah,
on,
it's a
you've got it.
Stocking
And
stuffer.
aren't they on, like, the format is like VCR?
VHS.
So that's probably what they have in Cuba, are like
VHS, yeah.
VCRs.
Oh, that's
VHS. Or maybe 8-track.
There we go.
Hey, this is great. I could bring down and actually watch him again.
What else could they?
Yeah.
What else could we bring them?
Well, what they didn't I read somewhere, and
this could be
this
great.
can't be true,
But they
Megan,
don't
but
get-
I'm going to ask Jerry and want you to join me in asking him, so if he gets pissed off, he doesn't get pissed off only at me.
Fair enough.
I heard, Megan, I think I may have read that at the Jerry Springer TV show,
Yeah.
you and I have never been invited
No,
there.
we
He does
have not.
Does not want us in that room ever.
Nope.
Isn't there like a souvenir store?
That's what I've heard.
And on some
Oh,
shelf in there, there's like Jerry Springer panties?
What?
Oh,
Are you serious?
like you don't have a pair.
I do
What
not.
do you got?
But I'm going to find them. I'll tell you that much right now.
Oh, you've got to.
And I'm taking them to Cuba.
It's a conversation piece.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, but no, they sell all kinds of things.
Like what else? What other kind of swag can you get at the Jerry Springer show?
Actually, there is a T-shirt that a lot of people are wearing to the show now, Jerry Springer for president.
Oh, no.
Oh, no kidding.
Can you get like Jerry Springer mugs and pens and all that stuff like you can at the museum?
If Hillary doesn't run for re-election in 2020,
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Hey, on a serious note, we are going to take some CDs from
Yeah.
We
some
should.
roots
Yeah.
music people who
Some
are
of the people that
associated with the Folk
play
School
on this
Coffee
show.
Parlor.
Absolutely.
And
That'd be great.
also, Casey Campbell will be with us with his
We're going to
guitar.
give him Casey.
Yeah. We're going to
How
give him a
about
little
a
bit of
copy of
Casey.
Save the Terminal?
Save Union Terminal, recorded in
Yeah.
Cincinnati back in 1970 something. Hey, here's one other thing. Why wouldn't we, Jerry? It's a question to you, and we'll let Megan listen on here because she's in on this. But why don't I produce some flyers for Would You Like to Date Megan? Pass those out in Cuba, up and down the
You know
beach.
what? I
Have you
tell
ever-
you, that brain of yours just doesn't stop, does it?
No.
Have you ever been out with someone of Cuban heritage?
I've never dated anyone from Cuba. No.
Would you like to date a
I've never-
Havana boy?
I've never really considered it, to be honest.
Oh,
Yeah.
that would
Well,
be nice.
That would be.
We'll set you up.
Thanks, Jer.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate where you guys' heads are all the time. It's great.
Hey, we're always looking
You're
out
like, I'm
for
really
you,
in
Megan.
good hands.
Yeah,
I know I don't.
Always looking out for it. Hey, it makes me think of my cousin Mike.
Oh, shut up.
And my cousin Mike, and God bless him, Megan and Jerry, because he's my cousin Mike is, I guess you would say, in recovery. He spent 21 years in a monastery
Fallen
in
for it, I was gonna
Kentucky.
say.
Yeah, we can.
And
make fun.
he has become
What, are you recovering from a monastery?
he's become an atheist, if you want to know the truth. And let's don't joke about that part because,
No, because
none of
well,
us
wait
is.
A
And
second. Who strikes you down if you're an atheist?
well, I don't, he's not really worried about
Yeah.
it, but he's been drinking a lot of beers, and I've been going out with
Yeah.
him and drinking with him and kind of trying to bring him back into society because he spent 21 years, first of all, not talking and spending his time making food, working in the fields, etc. So he's telling me, and he's kind of, his therapy is like, I got to tell these stories about the monastery, things I experienced, and some are funny, some are sad. And he said he remembered the day a guy came into the monastery and came through the gates and met with the head monk, and the guy was so enthusiastic, I want to join the monastery. Now, don't laugh, but
Don't
He
worry,
had-
we never do.
he had no arms. He doesn't know if it happened in an accident, if it was sort of a genetic thing, but he had no arms. And so the head monk said to this gentleman, I know you want to join, but I can't think of a job you can do. Look around. We are working men. And we pray. We pray, we meditate, and we work. And he said, you know what? Maybe there is one task. It's a long shot, but come with me. And my cousin was carrying some materials for the head monk, and he went with him. And they went to the bell tower of the monastery in Kentucky. You know the monastery, Megan. You've heard of it. And they're up in the bell. What is this?
I just hate you so much.
Up in the bell tower, Jerry and Megan.
What were you doing up in the hotel?
Nothing about the bell tower.
They're up
I'm
in the
just
bell
gonna kill 'em when
tower,
this happens.
and the head monk said to
This
this
doesn't happen.
guy, do you think you could ring that bell? And he said, I can, because what I'll do is I'll run at it every hour, and I'll hit it, and it'll ring.
I hate you so much.
They said, let's do it. He joined the monastery.
And that's how it happened?
Well, what happened was after he was there for about a year, he made a run at the bell, and he glanced off of it, Megan, and bounded over the railing and fell to his death.
What a shame. What a
And
shame.
when the cops came, Jerry, the cops came and they said to the head monk, because they were doing the investigation, taking the body away, and they said, do you have an official name for him? And he said, I don't have his name, but his face rings a bell. I don't have his name.
That took over 2 minutes
A
to get to
face.
that.
rings a
That
bell.
was 2 minutes. No one in this room will get back again. You, evil
You
little man.
alienated every possible group just to get to that punchline?
The religious, the handicapped,
Oh.
any cops, people, all of it. You did it.
Catholics?
Catholics, all of it. Thank you, Gene Galvin.
Women who've been up in the monastery?
Let it go, Chair.
I've just had a bad day.
Why?
What-
I mean, I get
how
up
was
in
your
the
day?
morning. Well, I get up in the morning.
Right.
I put on my shirt, the button falls off. I reach for my briefcase, the handle falls off. I'm afraid to go to the bathroom.
Oh, hey.
out.
Let it be known, Jerry Springer got applause.
This is not.
It was
This
good.
is
For new material.
For new material.
This is God's truth. As we're taping, this past weekend was the beginning of Passover. So we had the whole family over down in Florida, and so we're doing the Seder, and those who aren't Jewish, the whole family sits around, and it's you go through prayers for about, in our house, probably about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then you have a wonderful meal. And Mickey prepared this wonderful meal, and but then after you finish the meal, and there are a few more prayers, etc. Well, for the last few weeks, I've been telling this stupid joke about, Mickey, God love her, we've been married for 42 years, but she's not the world's best cook. In fact, in our house, we pray after the meal. So now it's Passover. When the meal was done and we cleared the plates and everyone got back to the table, I said, "Oh my gosh, we really are praying after the meal." That actually happened.
Yeah, I was wondering. I think if Mickey was sitting here, she might join
no,
me.
no, she does
in
not
asking
know
this
we do a
question.
podcast.
Why wouldn't you, if you're going to do jokes about cooking, and that's cool, and you're going to pull somebody in from your family, that's cool. Why wouldn't you do your mom,
Right.
your mom, and
Right.
not
She
your wife,
suggested that.
and not your wife? But it makes me wonder if you're really.
Can't you say it to
Yeah.
your mom that wasn't a good cook?
And I think it's like you might really be a mama's boy. Like, oh no, my mom is sacred. Well, Mickey's sacred.
Right.
Yes.
Mickey's a wonderful person, very
Yes.
saintly person. Trust me.
Yes.
And what she
put up
has
with
Why should I
survived.
trust you? You mean you tested her?
No. She is
Where are we
very,
going with
very
this, Gene?
saintly.
Well,
a
she's put up
saint.
with you for that long. The woman just deserves a medal. It's unbelievable.
Jerry, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah, this I always know.
Yeah.
Isn't it true that most candidacies, maybe all candidacies, end up being kind of a referendum on what preceded them? Whoever the
Certainly.
administration. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, certainly the presidential election. Historically, well, let's at least go history for our adult life, those of us who are in our 70s. If I look at every election since 1964, every presidential election is a referendum on the current administration. So when Lyndon Johnson wins in a landslide in 1964, it obviously was because of in part because of the assassination of John Kennedy. The whole country, the election was 11 months after the assassination. It was clear that whoever the Democratic candidate would be, no Republican had a chance. They had Goldwater, who was so extreme anyway. But clearly, the judgment was made, we're going to fulfill the legacy of John Kennedy. In 1968, the judgment was made that what Lyndon Johnson did with Vietnam, we elected Richard Nixon. It was a referendum on the war in Vietnam. In 72, probably the one possible exception, but remember, 72 was before Watergate and all this, and there was still a lot of support for Richard Nixon, so the people said, okay, 4 more years. And McGovern was not a strong candidate, and there you go. In 76 was the referendum. We had just finished Watergate, so Jimmy Carter wins. In 1980, we had just had the Iran hostage situation and the Arab oil embargo. America was upset, so they voted in Ronald Reagan. They made a judgment on Ronald Reagan in 84 and 88. The public was very happy. Most people were at that time with Ronald Reagan, and so the Republican won. In 92, they weren't happy with George Bush, so Bill Clinton wins. In 96, they're happy with Clinton. Even in 2000, after Monica Lewinsky, still more Americans voted for the Democratic candidate for president than Republican. Bush won the Electoral College, but you'll remember America voted for Gore. In 2004, it was a response to 9/11. Still, there was mostly support for the war in Iraq, et cetera, and so they didn't want to change in the middle of the war. So Bush wins. And then in 2008, obviously America turned against Bush, against the Iraq war. Everything was for the economy, literally, the financial community system in America was going, through the basement, actually. And so we have Barack Obama. America's happy with Barack Obama 4 years later. So every presidential election is a referendum on the current administration. Now we come to 2016. And this is historic for many reasons, but not the least of which is this entire election. And this is not anything we saw coming. But the truth of the matter is, in both parties, it's all about Donald Trump. The Republicans obviously have to deal with Donald Trump, whether he's the candidate or not the candidate. And as we're speaking here tonight, which is the 26th of April, it seems almost impossible to stop Donald Trump from getting the nomination. And an effort to stop him would so tick off the Trump supporters that the Republican candidate would absolutely lose in November. So they're kind of stuck either way. And even in the Democratic Party, the question is, which candidate is going to be better able to deal with Trump? I mean, this election, we didn't want it to be so, but this is about Donald Trump. And that brings me to what I really wanted to talk about tonight is, I'm biased. I love Hillary Clinton, and I think she's just totally prepared to be president of the United States, and is the most qualified person to be president. And I don't have a bad thought or thing to say about Bernie Sanders. My guess is on an awful lot of issues, I'm closer to him even than Hillary. So this is not a slam on Bernie Sanders at all. But politics is about the art of the possible. And politics is about looking at reality, because that ultimately is what you're going to have to deal with. Not what you would like to see happen, but also what is possible to make it happen. And again, April 26, 2016, barring some piece of information that no one yet has, it just seems inconceivable that Hillary Clinton will not get the nomination. And therefore, where Bernie Sanders goes from here, I would argue, for those of us who realize that a Republican president would mean that the right-wing Republican Congress could get whatever it wanted because there'd be no veto, to stop that, we have to have a Democratic president. The country has to have a Democratic president as long as you have this Congress. And knowing that, Hillary Clinton is the last thing to stop Donald Trump from being president. That's what it's down to. The Republicans can't stop Trump from getting the nomination. So the last protection we have from a Trump presidency and a Republican presidency that won't be able to veto this right-wing Congress is the election of Hillary Clinton. That's reality, even if I hated her. That's the truth. It's hard to find a rational argument against that. Knowing that, the plea is to Bernie Sanders supporters, keep supporting him. Vote for him if you haven't voted yet in the primaries that are coming up. Support who you really want. That's what this whole process is about. And to Bernie Sanders and his people, do what you want to do. But in asking for people's vote, don't be going around slamming Hillary Clinton. Give your view of what you think the presidency should be and what you would do in the White House. That's a fair discussion. But to start slamming Hillary, knowing full well that everything you say is going to be picked up and, by gosh, make it more difficult for Hillary to win in November, you have to be asking yourself, what am I trying to get out of this election year? Why am I in this? If you really aren't bothered with a right-wing Congress, then go ahead. But if you're worried about what happens to the Supreme Court, if you're worried about what happens to women's rights, if you're worried about what happens to things like minimum wage, what happens to the economy, what happens to health care, what happens to the environment, all these issues that those of us who are Democrats or moderates or liberals care about, well, if this is important, then this is not like with sports teams where you root for uniforms. This is substantive. And we can't damage Hillary Clinton, even if you don't get excited about her. I think you should, but even if you don't, I don't even care if you don't like her personality. You don't like her voice. You wish she were cooler or whatever. None of that matters. This isn't a game show. This isn't who am I going to date. This is the leader of the free world. What's going to happen to our country? And we have to have someone who's really, really knowledgeable and is not right-wing. And that means from this moment on, do nothing to damage the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. We're only hurting ourselves. You might as well sign on the line, Donald Trump, please be our president. And cross your fingers, he's now in charge of the nuclear arsenal. He's in charge of all foreign affairs. He's in charge of everything. And if you really think that's best for America, then you go ahead and try to damage Hillary Clinton. But if you do not think that is the best, my plea is, for example, I don't want the Sanders people that I have heard say in the last couple of weeks, if we're behind, we're going to get the super delegates to change their minds and vote for us. Well, that's hypocritical. That's everything against what the Sanders people have been saying. The beauty about the Sanders people is they're so pure. They've been so pure. They've been so, this is what politics ought to be. They were complaining about superdelegates. Well, Hillary will have more pledged delegates, and Hillary, by a big margin, she already is ahead by 2.5 million before they counted the votes tonight, is going to be ahead in the popular vote. So if most Democrats voted for Hillary, and she has most of the pledged delegates as well, why would you try to get the superdelegates to go against the wish of the people? That's exactly opposite of what they were arguing. So please, you're supporting Sanders? Great. He's a good, decent man, very bright, very committed, very authentic. Can't think of a bad thing to say about him. But let not the people around him lose sight of the real objective here, and it's not to give one person the chance to put presidency on your resume. It is to save our country. And that's why we cannot hurt Hillary Clinton.
Good comment, Jerry. Hey, by the way, when you talk about superdelegates in the Republican Party, they're struggling. They don't have superdelegates as
many,
we do.
right, yeah.
They have a few, but not
right,
many.
Right.
Do you remember when you and I and others, Sherrod Brown was there. Actually, it was his wife who was the delegate, but he was there as a young state rep. Now he is the senator from Ohio and other people. When we were delegates in 1980 in New York City, following that convention, the superdelegate idea in the Democratic Party was birthed, that there had to be some force within the Democratic Party that was not totally emotional and easily drawn off to drama and rogueness, and they built in this block of delegates that would be the grown-ups in the room. Let's be honest about this. That's the way the Democratic Party does it. The Republican Party, at the beginning of this election cycle, presidential election cycle, mocked that. Now they damn well wish they had that, because they are suffering for the lack of that. There is nobody. The Tea Party people have dragged them to the far right, and they're now going to live with what happened starting 6 years ago, 6 years ago, probably, when the Tea Party 4 to 6 movement started. And it just might, I'm not sure it will, it might wreck their party for the foreseeable future. We're going to have to see. And by the way, we touched on this last week. The parties, the social parties at the Democratic conventions are great. They are great.
Getting on depressing news.
No,
And the Republican parties, I've never been to a Republican convention.
Republicans
They have to
can't.
be like so bored. They're like prayer groups.
Republicans can't dance.
No, they can't.
No.
No.
But the parties,
You ever see a Republican candidate dance?
A candidate?
I mean, really? No. I mean, you see Obama dance. He can dance.
Yep.
Well, I take that back. Hillary's not that good of a dancer.
Right.
I did see her.
Yeah, it was not great. It
Never
was not
mind
great.
what
So
I
if
said.
dancing is going to be the
Or
But
just
overall,
decider,
Democrats throw
Yeah.
a better party. Like, just hands down, we know this.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, we have, in a few minutes, we have a fellow named Finley Napier coming on. This is real interesting. He's not even in the room here at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. He's in, I think it's Glasgow. We'll ask him when we talk to him, in Scotland. And I'm going to tell where we found him and why he's on in a minute. But before we do that, I wanted to ask Jerry. I saw a picture.
You gotta have a new setup because it makes everyone so uncomfortable when you say,
Yeah.
"I gotta ask you something."
Yeah, it's never good, is it? I mean this in the nicest possible way. Whenever you hear that, like, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's gonna,
Or no offense.
no offense.
Don't take this the wrong way, but
You saw this photo the other day because I sent it to you, Megan, and I had seen it earlier in life. But there's this incredible picture, and we
Yeah.
all put it on Facebook and stuff. And I should stick it up on the website too. But it's a photo of a young Jerry Springer with Bob Dylan,
Oh, right.
the Bob Dylan.
oh yeah,
And
it's great when it's sepia.
some people emailed me and said, or maybe posted on my Facebook page of, look, Bob Dylan's looking at his cell phone. And what he's doing is
I
he's
know.
holding something. You can't quite see what it is.
It's the key to the city.
It is. So tell the story of
Is it
how you
really?
met Bob Dylan.
Yeah, that's not a joke.
And
That is
why in the
truth.
hell can't you get him on this podcast? I mean, you gave him the key to the city.
I've run what, the key to Ludlow? Yeah, he'll be here in no time. Damn! As soon as the bus comes by, he'll be
Yeah, right. But
No.
tell how that happened.
Yeah. Well, when I was mayor, we were 32, 33 years old. So we being you and me, Gene, and so obviously I was really into the music of the times, and I was a fan of all these people, and I figured, gee, I'm mayor now. So I want to meet these people. Why don't I offer them a key to the city?
Shut up. That was
No,
it.
this is true. And I got in a little bit of trouble, not a lot of trouble. Compared to all the other things, this was a piece of cake.
This turns out this was nothing.
Yeah. They're not going to, my obituary is not going to have it, the first sentence, Jerry Springer, who gave away a lot of keys to the city, died today at the age of...
But it might say Jerry Springer.
Yeah,
in
we
Northern
know what
Kentucky.
it'll say, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Fort Mitchell.
Yeah, yeah. Was it? No, Fort Wright.
Fort Wright, my bad.
Oh, learn your history.
Yeah, right.
So
Sorry,
anyway,
Fort
no,
Mitchell.
so I figured this
And the
is a
check
way...
didn't bounce. Go ahead, Jerry. No, I appreciate
It
that.
didn't.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The
So
fact
Bob
that people
Dylan.
could question my credit. So anyway, yeah. So I get to be mayor. Now, one of the campaign promises when I was running for at city council and the mayor was that if I were elected, I would bring rock and roll to Cincinnati. Because remember, this is the mid 70s. And the election actually was December of 77. And Cincinnati, for those not around here, was a very, very, very conservative Republican city. And except for San Diego, it was the most conservative big city in America. And there was also some of the leaders of this community were nationally prominent, what today we would call right-wingers, on all issues ranging from, Mapplethorpe to the Keatings with pornography and all those things. So this was really, and the idea of rock and roll, oh my gosh, if we have rock and roll, we're going to bring drugs here, it's, it'll be horrible. So we were fighting that, the rest of the country had moved on, but in Cincinnati it was still an issue. And I thought of making it I wanted rock and roll because I was a fan of rock and roll. And so were the people of my generation. I thought if I can find an economic hook to it, and the economic hook turned out to be at the time, we had Riverfront Stadium. Riverfront Stadium was paid for by the taxpayers of the city, county, et cetera. And so I made the argument, which I think makes real sense, and I think most people ultimately agreed. Riverfront Stadium was vacant, said right on our river, obviously. It was vacant 280 days a year because the Reds only play 81 home games and then the Bengals 8. So it's 89 days a year that the stadium is being used. The rest of the time, the stadium was vacant. You have this tax-supported, which is costing us a lot of money and bringing in no revenue those days. So wouldn't it be great to turn the stadium for days that it was available and have nice concerts there? So this was going to be Cincinnati's first ever sponsored outdoor rock concert.
Bob Dylan?
Well, no, here's what happened. I had a fan crush on Linda Ronstadt. So I got in touch with her, and we'd love you to host the first ever outdoor rock concert. And we couldn't work out the dates, but she knew and was friendly with the Eagles. In fact, the Eagles, if I'm correct, was the backup band for Linda Ronstadt when she started. I think she then went to the Stone Ponies, but I think started out with the Eagles. And she knew Glenn Frey, and she gave him, she says, let me see if I can get them. And sure enough, she got them. And so the first ever outdoor rock concert in Cincinnati was at Riverfront Stadium on August 16th, 1978. And so when they came to the city, of course, I gave them the key to the city. And then it suddenly dawned on me, this is great. Who else wants a key to the city? So now I start
Just
calling everybody.
making it rain with keys to Cincinnati.
You can look it up. I gave keys to the city to Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers. It just went on. And, Emmylou Harris.
Good
And
God.
it went on. I mean, I gave about 28, 30 of them, and at some point the Inquirer said, what are you doing?
Knock it off.
Yeah.
Enquirer is a Cincinnati newspaper.
Yeah, and
Major
we're running out of keys, and I said, if we run out of keys, I'll start giving the combination: 14 to the left, 25 to the right, 27 to the left, whatever.
And Dylan performed, as I recall, at a place called Bogart's.
No, I think actually it was for that concert. It was in the Coliseum.
Oh,
Back
really?
then,
Yeah, well, it could be.
Yeah, and because that picture is in the dressing room there. He had just returned from Nuremberg, where he did a outdoor concert at Nuremberg in Germany, and there was much controversy about it. So this was a huge story, as well as him just coming to Cincinnati to do the concert. But I got to say this, when he came in, and, we're about the same age, and he was just so cool, and for 15, 20 minutes, we're sitting there, and he asked all the questions. He was just fascinated about being mayor of a city, at a young age and all this. I mean, it was just like, and then he was just a regular guy. And the picture there is, people say that's a cell phone. This is 1978. We didn't have cell phones. It was the key to the city. And he's looking at it. What's this, man?
It's exactly what it is.
Oh, also Bruce Springsteen.
Also.
Wow. There's a place in Covington, Kentucky called Mike's. It's a great place. And listeners, if you're ever in this area, first come to Folk School Coffee Parlor.
Cousin.
Not my cousin Mike.
Mike's Monastery.
Mike's is a vintage string instrument place.
Oh, right there on Main Street, yeah?
Right. So I sell guitars,
Yeah,
and
Main Street
mainly
Village.
guitars with some banjos, maybe mandolin now and then.
Yeah, it's cool.
And story goes that one day, well, I know what happened. I wasn't there, but the guy that runs the shop told me this. One day, he's working the desk, and there's a kid in the shop, young teenager, looking at guitars. And this guy comes in with a hoodie up, and, hey, how you doing? And he went all through the shop, and he asked about a specific guitar, a Gibson, some model number. And the guy, I think, even had one, and he showed it to him, and he was in there for maybe 45 minutes, just sort of talking and looking at stuff and messing with instruments. And then when he was done, he said, hey, appreciate it, see you later. And he walked out. And the teenager turned to the guy that works at Mike's and says, that was Dylan. And the guy said, yeah, I know it was. And by the way, here's a $100 gift certificate to you for not saying a word to him.
Yeah.
So the kid walked out with $100 credit for something. Because he said, that is very cool that as a young person, and you knew that was Bob Dylan.
You didn't geek out.
That you didn't say a word.
Yeah.
You just let him be. And he walked out and walked up the street. And it turns out that he was playing at Bogart's, which is a venue in Cincinnati that's over near the University of Cincinnati.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just really cool that, sometimes that stuff happens. But anyway, and I wanted to ask you one other thing. I love your TV show. I love your TV show.
Because he's
and
got
I
taste.
complimented you early on for the work you've done for our culture. And I remember...
Do people know that none of this is rehearsed? Well, I guess you can tell.
No.
But honestly,
But I
God's
saw
truth. We had no discussion
We don't
about
have a discussion of me. Yes, we just come over here and sit down and turn on the mics and pray God that we
Here we
can
go.
think of some stuff. But you had a guy
what
on
do
your show.
atheists yell out during sex?
I don't know.
That's a great question.
The humanity. The humanity, or the horror,
humanity.
or the horror, maybe.
No, go ahead. You just you said atheist.
I know you had on your TV show
Yes.
a guy, as I recall, a little person. And he
that the
was a
technical term?
KKK guy, a little person KKK guy, Ku Klux Klan guy.
Yeah.
And do you remember that? And then they pulled the hood off. What was that all about? Do you recall that show?
really happen?
It was one of your better shows.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, he doesn't even know. It's like, well, it sounds like one of my
5,000
shows.
shows. I'm sure.
I do have a real
we
question.
often have, I do remember we had some shows. That's when we were more serious. But we did have some shows on the Klan. And I guess we did have
But didn't the guy pull
little
the hood
people in
off
the
and he
Klan.
was an African American
Yes.
little person?
Yeah, but he was a member of the Klan.
And that
How's
was
that work?
all the.
How does
it
that
didn't work very well.
I was gonna say, doesn't make sense.
No, but that's why he kept the sheet on all the time.
It makes me think of the
Didn't
time.
you say that, like, honestly, your very first show that there was protesting because of that's how long there were protests because of interracial couples?
That's not a
on your
joke.
show?
That is true.
Yeah. Like, it's come
Early
back
on, the
full
very
circle.
first year of our show, we did it here in Cincinnati, right up on Channel 5 there in 9th Street, 9th and Plum, I guess. And anyway, and we did a show on interracial dating.
Oh.
And there were protesters outside the studio.
And it wasn't that long ago. It was like 1990.
1991.
Wow.
So you think about it. I mean, with all the joking about the show, part of it belongs in the time capsule because it does show you how our reaction to the culture has changed. Now we have an African American president, thank God, who's a product of an interracial marriage.
That's really stunning when you
So,
think of
and
those
here
protests.
we had just about interracial dating. It's basically how we got the idea that the name of the company that we started that owns this podcast is Liberals Always Win.
Yep.
Because in the long run, on all these social issues, in the end, we win. There'll be protests in the beginning. You guys are crazy. You're idiots. You're going to ruin the culture. You're going to do this, that, and the other. And 10, 15 years later, you're embarrassed that you even debated the issue. Gay marriage being the most recent example of how, in the end, liberals always
Or
win.
transgender bathrooms going on right now.
Absolutely.
That's the next one. That's the
Let's
next
do
one.
the
and
next
that-
podcast on that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need
yeah.
to talk about that.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I do the banking for the podcast, and I'm dealing with a bank in Cincinnati, which is like a major bank with lots of branches, and I pop into different ones
Don't you
depending on where I am.
sometimes have to make a deposit?
Yeah, I do. Well, that's the point. When I take your checks.
Oh, yeah, it's
by the
quite
way.
embarrassing. No, you don't know what that feels like to walk into a conservative Cincinnati bank with a check that says liberals always win.
Well, that's the deal.
Oh.
That's it. So you're experiencing it too.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they comment on
Oh, I've had. Well, here's
really?
what.
This is
Here's what a guy said. I'm trying to remember.
You didn't know that, did you?
God, I can't remember what he said, but it was hilarious. And he kind of whispered across the counter to me when he saw the check, and then he sees the name. Well, yeah, typically it goes like this. They look at the. I'll walk up and say, because it's what I say. I say I want to deposit this into our business account, which is Liberals Always Win LLC, and they make eye contact with me right away and stare at me. What'd you say? Liberals Always Win LLC. And then they have their reaction to that depending on whether they're liberals or conservatives. The liberals, they go, yeah, cool. And if they're not, they go, you're crazy. And it's your point. And then they see the name, and then they
my name on the check.
your name, and
Oh,
then they'll
right.
say things
Well, of
sometimes.
course.
What they should say is absolutely nothing.
Right.
Professionally, you're an
Correct.
HR person.
Correct.
They should say nothing, but
Right.
more often than not, they'll say, "The Jerry Springer," and or then they'll lean over and they'll say, "His show Thursday was unbelievable." Can you tell him that?
My favorite, when we did the radio show, I had to go in and cash my check from, and it was from Jerry. So you
Yep.
walk in as a 24-year-old woman with
Yeah.
a check.
Oh,
Jerry Springer.
You live in northern Kentucky.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
I
This is
like
for
it.
What?
I like it, Megan.
Yeah, right. It's for a radio show, right?
Yeah. I'm on his radio.
Sure it is.
I'm
Why
on his
didn't I
radio
think of that
show.
then? Why didn't I say
She's
it
my
was a radio show?
Yeah. Radio show.
Can you get Mr. Lease on the phone?
Yeah. Nobody knows who he is. He's, anyway, we have on our website from the beginning, and we've been around for, by the way, I think today, the 52nd episode
really?
went up. So it's a one. Hey, it's 1 year anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We made it.
Tales,
Nice going.
Tunes, and Tomfoolery, 1 year old. So when we started the show and set up the website, Blue Sun Media out in LA did that for us. We set up a thing called Songwriter Stump. The idea is that if you're not in the greater Cincinnati area and not a touring musician or a group songwriter coming through this area, and you'd like to still be on our show, let's use some technological wizardry and see if we can still involve you.
Sure.
So what people do, and we get a steady flow of these because they come to me, and then I send them, or Casey Campbell, our music coordinator, sees them as well. So there are people who send in a song. There's a signed form that says, this is my material, but I'm going to let you have it to play it. And the trade is I get exposure and you don't have to pay me to play it. So we deal with a copyright issue. So the Songwriter Stump has gotten some from not only around the country, but a few of them from around the world. So tonight is the first night that we're doing this, and we have on with us now, and I'm going to sort of pull the curtain back from the Wizard of Oz. He's coming in over Skype from, I think, Glasgow, Scotland, Finlay Napier. And let's give Finlay a round of applause. All right, so here's where we all cross our fingers
Seriously.
and say,
This works, yeah.
Finlay, are you there?
I am here. Hello, Kentucky.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Whoa. Hello, Scotland. You have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country. Just love it. Been there vacationing several times.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, thanks very much. And right back at you. Although I confess that I've only been to Kentucky once. I drove through it in the middle of the night on my way to St. Louis. Or is it St. Louis?
Yeah, either way. So you have been in the States then. So you've, it's good.
Yeah. I toured quite regularly in the States with a Scottish traditional folk band called Back of the Moon. So
Oh,
I was
fantastic.
there a lot.
Are you far from a town called Dundee?
I would say we're about 2 hours from Dundee right now.
Okay. Yeah, I remember we spent a night in Dundee, and one of the things I remember, which actually is relevant to this place, they had this wonderful, I guess it was a coffee shop or a pub, and we walked in there, my wife and I, it just, because we wanted something to eat, and there were about 25 people with guitars, banjos, fiddles, and sitting all around, and then there was a big round table in the middle, and they would just play songs, and someone would get up to leave, and another person with his guitar would come in, and everyone just sang along. So there wasn't any paid entertainers. It's people just came in with their instruments, and everyone sang along with it. Now, is this a custom that is done in many places in Scotland, or did we just luck out? But it's exactly like the place we're doing this podcast from.
Oh, it's quite a common thing.
Yeah.
In Scotland and Ireland, that's just called a session. Yeah, and in Glasgow, where I am at the moment, you can go to at least one session a night.
Oh, that's great. That is great. One last question, which has nothing to do with what you're going to do. But do you know this? I'm not going to ask you to play it. But do you know this song, "The Road to Dundee"?
Yes, I do. Yeah. My mum used to sing it, actually.
Yeah, it's an old-fashioned, and I fell in love with that song. But then someone wrote the words for me, and it's all in Scottish Gaelic, excuse me.
I imagine it's not. It won't be. I'm going to be a right pedantic now, if you don't mind. So Gaelic is Irish.
You're right. He
and
made me
Gaelic
say it. I
is
wasn't going to
Scottish,
say
but I imagine
Gaelic.
that the road to the north
The
of
guy
England
here
would
made me
have been
say it.
Scots.
Scottish. Scotch.
And by the way, let's.
So-
Yeah, go ahead, Finley. Sorry.
So I was going to say Scots.
Scots.
Rather than
Yeah.
Scotch.
It was Scotch.
Scotch is what you drink.
Here we go.
Isn't that the tune?
That's it, yeah.
Oh God, I love this song. I really do, but I don't know the words. So all I can do is
Not unlike the
Okay,
traditional.
I'm
And by the
taking
way,
your
let's
time. Yes.
let's tell a couple things about Finley. He is, and I'm going to kind of brag on you here for a second, Finley, because I've been doing a little research. But Finley Napier is very significant in the music scene, and particularly what we would call roots music scene in Scotland. He is kind of a big deal, and his latest album is called VIP, which is Very Interesting Persons. And I think the first song you're going to do is from that album. Would that be true?
That's right. I'm going to play a song called An Idol in Decline, which is about Mickey Mantle.
All right, here we go.
Oh.
Poor Mickey Mantle, pride of the Yankees, I had a card that you signed. The end of America's childhood for an idol in decline. Poor Mickey Mantle, I can still see you, 56, frozen in time. Always your favorite summer for an idol in decline. Poor Mickey Mantle, you made the covers, but somehow you slipped out of mind. Number 7's not always so lucky. A comet fell out of the sky. Falls to his knees, an idol in decline.
Wow.
Oh. That. Oh,
Beautiful.
that was beautiful. You would have no way of knowing this, but he's like my all-time hero.
Oh, no way.
You have no idea. I mean, he was exactly my generation. Back in the 1950s, baseball was just about the only sport that was on television. It wasn't until 1959 that most Americans had television sets. So Mickey Mantle was the golden, I mean, if you have an image of a golden American hero, it was Mickey Mantle. He was right from the center of the country. The research you did is excellent. I mean, he was from, you said Comet. He was.
I'm ashamed to say that I did all my research on Wikipedia.
Well, perfect. That's
right, it's
great.
there.
Hats off to him, because I'm thinking all these references you're making, right? He was from Commerce, Oklahoma. They called him the Comet because he was not only the greatest slugger in baseball, he was also the fastest man in baseball. He was this beautiful blonde. Every kid wanted to be Mickey Mantle. You would run like him. You would use the same posture when you were playing stickball or baseball. You would say, "And here comes Mickey Mantle!" Boom! I mean, everything was Mickey Mantle, and the idea that he was a hero in decline. There's a wonderful story a book about him now called "The Last American Hero," because he had a sad ending because he became an alcoholic. And then just really, really declined. And in the end, he had to have various transplants. And, he's been dead now 20 years. But that is a beautiful, beautiful song. And
Thank you.
You ought to send that song to ESPN here in America.
I know, yeah.
They will do something with it. I'm dead serious. They would play that song in the Hall of Fame.
Do that. It sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, just do it. It. Just from your point of view, it'd be great for Americans to listen to it, but it would be, I think, a great commercial success. I can see the Hall of Fame playing that song. ESPN does sports specials.
Yep.
Send it to Brian Gumbel, who has do it with ESPN. I think that's phenomenal.
Finley, if you and I communicate, and we have our respective email addresses, Jerry maybe can help you get some of those doors open and try it.
I'd love to help you with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you do a second song for us? This is Finley Napier.
Could you do a song about Yogi Berra?
The next song I was going to do for you is one called Sweet Science. It's a kind of posh word for boxing. And this is about a boxing match that happened in the 90s between two guys, and one of them killed the other one in the ring.
All right.
So...
No one else there saw it, just Gabriel as he fell. Jeremy's ghost, the man he killed, as the keeper rang the bell. Flashback to Las Vegas, he promised to make someone pay, but what went down in the 7th round shouldn't have gone that way. The sweet science of bruising beneath casino lights. Gabriel and Jene touch gloves and start to fight. Family round the bedside, Jene's out, there is no change. They're pleasant on the outside, but Gabriel, he's to blame. It wasn't even the title fight, they fought way down the bell. Gabriel didn't pull a punch when he didn't mean to kill. The sweet science of bruising beneath casino lights. Gabriel and Jene touch gloves and start to fight. He ignored the premonition, let a candle set a prayer. Now sees in every boxer's face ghost of Jene's stare. The sweet science of bruising beneath casino lights. Gabriel and Jene touch gloves and start the sweet science of bruising beneath casino lights. Gabriel and Jene touch gloves and start fight.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's Finlay Napier from Glasgow,
Thank you.
Scotland. Fantastic, Finlay. Hey, could you, we want you to take us out on Irene Goodnight if you are willing. And before we do that, can you tell us and our listeners, how can they access your music? Do you have a website? Do you have Facebook presence? Tell us how they can hear your stuff.
I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Bandcamp, and iTunes, and it's all under my names, which is Findlay Napier. So Findlay like Ohio, and Napier like the university.
There you go. Thank you so much for joining us, Finlay.
Thank you.
This has
This
been
has
so
been-
cool.
Oh, thanks. Great chatting to you
It's been
folks.
so
A
cool.
total treat.
that you've done this from a long, far piece from here, and it's. We're glad you were the first one, and there'll be others. Finlay Napier leading us all on Irene Goodnight.
1, 2, 3. Last Saturday night I got married. Me and my wife settled down. Oh, now me and my wife, we are parted. So I think I'm gonna go downtown. Irene, good night, Irene. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams.
You've been listening to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery, recorded live at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. Thanks to Patrick Kennedy for writing our opening song, and to you for listening. Check out our website at jerryspringer.com.
Irene, good night, Irene. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams. Irene, good night, Irene. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams.
You all come back now. Thank you very much.